Residents in one South Carolina county showed up with homemade signs and refused to let a vote go. Quietly, a Pennsylvania judge froze an entire township's data center review, then undid it a day later. And the operator of America's largest power grid has now asked federal regulators for permission to cut electricity to data centers before it cuts anyone's home. Here is what actually moved. We begin in Spartanburg County, South Carolina, where a council meeting turned into a standoff. Frustrated residents filled the chamber holding homemade signs reading, quote, "No more data centers," and, quote, "No more Poi son," spelled with a $sign. They came for a vote on a countywide moratorium that would pause new data center applications for a year. Council had already given the measure 2 readings. Instead of finishing the job, members pushed the third and final reading to the September 21 meeting, saying they wanted more time to hear from experts and to hold a special safety session first. Much of the public comment was aimed at the $3 billion NorthMark project, where construction has already started. Exchanges between residents and council members grew sharp. That kind of frustration is increasingly ending up in front of judges. In King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, the legal fight ran in both directions inside 48 hours. Developer Brian O'Neill sued Upper Marion Township, its Board of Supervisors and its Planning Commission after officials moved to run out the clock on his applications. A Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas judge granted an injunction that temporarily barred the township from taking any action, which forced the cancellation of a planning commission meeting where O'Neill's team was set to present. By Thursday afternoon, the same judge vacated that order. The board met and denied 2 extension requests that would have given the developer more time. The project, called the Renaissance Park and Innovation Data Center Campus, would exceed 4.5 million square feet. O'Neill says he will push forward. Underneath every one of these fights sits the same question: where does the power come from? PJM Interconnection, the grid operator that keeps the lights on for 67 million people across 13 states and Washington, D.C., has asked federal regulators to let it cut power to new data centers before it cuts power to anyone else. The filing responds to a June 18 order from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which gave PJM a 60-day clock that ran out on August 17. Under the proposal, any end-use customer drawing 50 megawatts or more at a single site is classified as a large load. If the utility serving that load has not designated enough qualifying new generation to cover its peak demand, the uncovered portion gets curtailed first, ahead of ordinary demand response. Projects can escape that exposure through a mechanism PJM calls Bring Your Own New Capacity. Power is only half the constraint. Water is the other half. Virginia is the largest data center market on Earth, and its own environmental agency has just published a study that undercuts the industry's expansion. East of Interstate 95, scientists at the Department of Environmental Quality examined the Potomac Aquifer, the largest and deepest groundwater source in eastern Virginia, accounting for roughly 70% of all withdrawals in the state's eastern Virginia groundwater management area. Levels had risen and broadly stabilized until about 2021, when the trend stalled and began to reverse. The report projects declines resuming within the next 5 to 10 years, and concludes the aquifer cannot support meaningful new industrial withdrawals. In practical terms, that means new water-cooled data centers would struggle to obtain reliable groundwater permits. The study was legally due January 1. It took an open records request to get it released. Regulators are not the only ones recalculating the cost. In Raleigh, Duke Energy Progress's rate case is back before the North Carolina Utilities Commission. And the argument outside the hearing room is about data centers. Duke has proposed a settlement with the state public staff and other parties that cuts its original increase by more than half, landing at roughly 3.4% a year over 2 years. For a household using 1,000 kilowatt-hours a month, that is about $9.62 more starting January 1st of 2027, followed by another $5.89 in 2028. The contested question is who should pay for the grid upgrades needed to serve enormous new customers. The Environmental Defense Fund's North Carolina policy director put it plainly. Other states let data centers bring their own power and pay for it themselves. And North Carolina does not. Lawmakers elsewhere are reaching for a different lever entirely. Virginia built its data center industry on a sales tax exemption now worth about $1.6 billion a year, and the state Senate wants to switch it off. Senate budget writers proposed phasing out the exemption on January 1st of 2027. An expedited sunset from the original 2035 end date. The roughly $1 billion that would generate over 2 years is earmarked for rebates sent directly back to Virginians. Senate Finance and Appropriations Chair Louise Lucas, a Democrat from Portsmouth, argued it is time for data centers to pay their fair share. The House took a different position, and Governor Abigail Spanberger has been more sympathetic to keeping the incentive. So the two chambers have been working the difference through conference. Yet none of this regulatory pressure has slowed the shovels. Vantage Data Centers has broken ground on Frontier, a campus in Shackelford County, Texas, roughly 125 miles west of Fort Worth and close to Abilene. It is part of the Oracle and OpenAI Stargate expansion, and Vantage calls it the largest project in the company's history. At full build-out, the 1,200-acre site will hold 10 single-story data centers totaling about 3.7 million square feet and 1.4 gigawatts of capacity. Air and liquid cooled, engineered for densities above 250 kilowatts per rack. Total investment is put at more than $25 billion, with more than 5,000 jobs across construction and operations. The first building is due to go live in the second half of this year. And the money standing behind projects like this keeps getting stranger. And the financial engineering behind all of it took another turn. In a securities filing, NVIDIA disclosed a set of residual value guarantee agreements tied to OpenAI's 20-year lease of an enormous Ohio data center campus. NVIDIA's combined payment obligations under those agreements cannot exceed $105 billion. The guarantees cover OpenAI's initial 4.25 gigawatt commitment at the Port's Pike campus, built on the grounds of a Cold War-era uranium enrichment plant, with capacity phasing in from 2028 and a path toward 8 gigawatts, which would make it the largest single AI data center anywhere. OpenAI still owes the rent. NVIDIA only pays if OpenAI becomes insolvent or defaults. Separately, NVIDIA is investing $1.5 billion into SB Energy, while SB Energy and SoftBank commit at least $4.2 billion to regional grid infrastructure. Thanks for watching. If you found this useful, subscribe, leave a like, and drop a comment. It helps us cover more of these stories.